Good morning, everyone. It is just around 10:32, and I wanted to open this meeting. Am I unmuted? I wanted to open this meeting of the Economic Development Committee of the Springfield City Council. Springfield City Council from time to time has a function to not only make city ordinances, but also to review city ordinances. And it's our hope that city ordinances, especially here on the Economic Development Committee, are conducive to promoting business here in the city of Springfield and promoting the fact that we're a city that's welcoming to small business, and that the ordinances that we have in the books do not have a chilling effect on business owners and business operators. And so from time to time, it's good to review these ordinances. I want to, before we begin the meeting, let all participants know that there is a court case regarding some of the issues that are going to be discussed, and to the extent that the committee members are, we're not here to litigate that court case, but really just to speak in general about the merits of our current licensing authority implementation of our current ordinances, and whether they should be reviewed, improved, or changed. So to give just a general 30,000 feet background, and this is new to me because it's not something that I have ever encountered before, but it is my understanding, and we have in the room before I begin, our tax collector, Mr. Peter Signator. You want to introduce yourself?
Pete Signator, Assistant Collector.
And go around the table.
Steve Larry, Treasurer Collector.
And Ken Shea from the Law Department.
Councilwoman Maria Perez, Ward 1.
Alfredo Orejuela, landlord.
And so, and we have in the Zoom box, I see Jose Delgado. If you're unmuted, you want to say hello? And we also are joined by Mr. Kenny Lumpkin of Dewey's Restaurant, our attorney, licensing attorney, Alicia Days, and that is the table, the round table before us. So it was brought to my attention, and certainly post-COVID, we're trying to do everything we can to keep small businesses afloat. Recently, especially in downtown Springfield, we've had a significant losses of some good businesses. Jackalope had recently closed. We lost Granny's Baking Table, off the top of my head. We lost Hot Oven Cookies off the top of my head. And we lost a coffee shop that's across from City Hall. I don't recall the name of it. So it's getting tougher and tougher to do small business here in the city of Springfield. And we want to make sure that the laws that we have don't have a chilling effect again on small businesses coming into the city. And one of the issues before us is the payment of property taxes in coordination with liquor licenses. And it's my understanding, and if Peter could maybe give me an overview on this, that in the city, if a landlord does not have his property taxes current, the restaurant or bar owner is somehow prohibited from renewing their liquor license, or that liquor license will be put on pause. Can you give us some insight?
Liquor license is renewed,
Yeah.
but it is held by the License Commission Office until the financial obligations associated with that license are met.
And when that happens, can the liquor, when you say held, can the restaurant or bar serve when you mean?
No,
No, okay.
because they don't have the next year's license.
They don't have the next year's license. And how long, if you know, I remember when the control board came in here, we had one restaurant bar owner had like $1 million in unpaid property taxes. And I think it was just an issue similar, but the city was threatening to take away the liquor license, and the property taxes were paid pretty much immediately. Is this, when was this first initiated? Was this always on the books, or was that just around the time that it came about?
It It was on the books when I was hired,
What year was that?
2004,
Okay,
but it was never enforced.
okay,
So I was a license commissioner and I said, why aren't we enforcing this ordinance? We have liquor licensees or tax delinquent all over the city. And I went to Mayor Ryan and he said, we should be enforcing this license, start with the liquor licenses. And we collected almost $2 million in delinquent taxes just from the liquor licensees that year.
and it's on our books here in the city. And that is, as the, for times, you was, you still are, you're the head of the liquor license here in the city. right?
No, I'm not the chair.
Who is the chair?
Rosa Espinosa.
Okay. Is that a framework that we use here in Springfield, to your knowledge, and you may not know, is that replicated across the Commonwealth? Like, how does that work? Do the other towns, like, we'll say Worcester, I know, or Worcester and Northampton, cities around here, and cities in Eastern Mass, do they have the same framework? Is that kind of,
We have to accept the section of Mass General Law.
okay,
And if they do, then they do. Some even more than Springfield does.
but is it our discretion to do that? Or is it kind of that you can, to withhold the liquor license if the property tax isn't paid? That's kind of that's a town by town policy.
If they have accepted the ordinance, then they should be forcing it. So I don't know how every town does it, but in Springfield, that's the way we do it.
Gotcha. Is there any insight, Mr. Lonergan? at all?
The only way that you wouldn't enforce is if you didn't, as Peter said, if you didn't accept the local option of the chapter of the Mass General Law, which Springfield did. So once they do that, it becomes a collection tool that the city can use to get taxes due it to keep it running.
Okay. All right.
So if they don't, they probably didn't accept it.
And can you explain to me, so in order for business owner to have the business to continue to run, the business owner from time to time could actually pay the property taxes on behalf of the building?
Yes.
How prevalent is that? How many times does that happen here in Springfield? That's the part that was new to me. I never even heard of that or thought of that people could pay property taxes to somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Happens a lot. That people pay other people's property taxes. It happens a lot.
yeah,
With our liquor licensees, we have some every year who come in and
yeah,
especially new liquor licensees will say, well, those are my landlord's taxes. I said, well, but they are taxes that must be paid in order for your license to be issued for the next year. You need to figure this out between you and your landlord.
yeah.
Some will go to their landlord will pay them, and some will just pay them in order to get their license. renewed.
Yeah, and it's understood. I mean, in the restaurant bar industry, there's a cozy relationship between landlord and business owner. It could be family members and there might be an arrangement, but that's a pretty prevalent practice here in the city.
Yes.
Let's say, I know you don't have percentages off the top yet, but 20% do it that way maybe, or are you
Probably less.
less? Now, when that happens, when somebody comes in and does that, it pays, does there have to, like, you go to the window, do you pay the property taxes, or is there an agreement? Does the landlord have to agree? Like, if I own a building and there's a tenant in there, a restaurant, and I'm not paying my property taxes, and the restaurant owner comes into my building, do I have to agree to do it? Or
Allow the tenant to pay the taxes?
yes,
No.
No,
what, why not? What,
state law, I checked with the state. The state said to me, do you card everybody that comes in to pay their taxes? And I'm like, no. And he goes, well, there's your answer. You could pay my taxes. You come in and say, I want to pay Larry's taxes.
but just hypothetically,
No,
if I didn't want, if I'm a building owner and I didn't want my taxes paid, how do you,
Well,
could you object?
I mean, first thing I'd say is this.
Yeah,
I can't object, number one, but secondly, that's between landlord and tenant to iron out the differences. Doing it the way you suggested to me, that's only my opinion, is a way of saying, let's have the city settle our dispute. And fact of the matter is, taxes are due, someone pays them. I'm not gonna say, Well, you might be in an argument with Councilor Perez here, so no, I'm not gonna take it, with someone's coming to pay their taxes, it's paid.
So could I ask the question?
Sure, absolutely, Maria.
Thank you, Chair. So is to the discretion then to the tenant, he could go pay it, and if the landlord is saying no, you just don't get into,
I don't get into who should pay. We send the bill to the landlord. He chooses not to pay it for whatever reason. The tenant is having his liquor license held up as a result of it and says, you know what? And this is what, it's under 20%, come in and say, you know what, I need my license to keep my business going. So here, I'll pay the taxes. And I'll work out with the landlord, whatever the case may be. And then we take the money, apply it, they're in good standing, and they get their license at that point.
so.
I mean, and by the way, I should clarify, and I'm sorry, I clarified one thing. We let the license commission know that there are taxes due on that property. The license commissioners or licensing are the ones that actually will make the decision to issue or not issue a license.
And just for the purpose for the public, I wanted to make clear, so then the landlord is refusing to pay the taxes. It falls under the responsibility of the tenant in order to sustain his license.
It's. Put it this way, the taxes have to be based on what the council years ago accepted and the law they accepted. The taxes have to be satisfied in order for a license to be issued.
Okay.
Okay, who pays that? Whether there's a disagreement between tenant and landlord, or tenant and landlord and whomever. If the taxes are paid, the licenses will pass. We do what we call tax certification, where we review everything. And the taxes aren't paid, they have a fail, which then the license commission would go and, or licensing department would send them a letter saying, you need to do this and this to get the license.
So. Vamos.
Just on that point though, and that's unique to me, you know, it's an interesting point to me. Again, you know, if I own a building, if then there's plenty of landlords that own, let's say 10 buildings and they can't cover them all, right? And well, let's say it's a bad market recession, they can't sell it either. And if they don't have the money to pay their property taxes, they probably don't have the money to keep up the sprinkler systems. These buildings, some of them downtown are 100 grand, the wiring, get the fire extinguishers inspected and whatnot, all the general maintenance that make them ADA accessible. We're giving the building a license to invite the public into these buildings. And I'm a landlord. There's nothing I can say to, and I own like 10 properties. Somebody just coming off the street that and just pay my property taxes. There's nothing I can say with it. I guess the question is, could we do that? I mean, just say there has to be like some kind of disclosure that.
Well, you got a decision, you got an opinion from the DOR.
Yeah, DOR said that anybody can come and pay tax.
Without permission of the landlord.
I mean, truthfully, if you want to pay my taxes, go ahead. I know.
No,
and I'm not
I
making
get you.
what I'm
And
saying,
this is a
most
unique,
people are
it's a
not-
unique situation, but
It's a very unique situation, and the fact is by mass law, we are, if someone comes in and says, if I come in and say, pay Sean Curran's taxes,
yeah,
I am directing the collector's office. I'm only someone who takes the money and applies it, okay?
yeah.
So you're directing me to apply it to Sean Curran's taxes. Doesn't matter who it is.
If I don't want my taxes paid, isn't there some way
If
to,
that was the case, everybody in town would be coming in and saying, I don't want my taxes, but I'm
but
saying,
they'd be going to foreclosure
but.
or tax title.
They could, yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
If the building owner wanted to go for whatever reason into tax title, how is he he's prevented if the business owner keeps paying his taxes?
He's not. I mean, truthfully, and again, I'm delighted, I'll let Alicia address this, but as far as the collection of taxes, if someone comes in to pay taxes, it's my fiduciary responsibility to take it.
No, I see that now.
What I'm saying, as far as the licensing
But
and all that stuff,
should there be, or are there in other municipalities, at least a form that says,
No.
nothing?
no.
That's amazing.
And keep in mind, there are several
Yeah.
methods to pay taxes. They don't just come in person to the collector's office. They could go online on our website and pay the taxes. They could mail a check to our lot box and pay the taxes. Just print a copy of the bill off of our website and mail it in. And we would never see it.
And we're seeing a higher uptick in the electronic payment of taxes due to COVID.
Okay. I see Attorney Days there. I don't know if you wanted to chime in on it, that little bit of a conversation. It's new to me that you could have your property taxes paid in ad infinitum, without
I think if you think of it this way, Councilor Curran, the city is concerned with the collection of taxes, right? So we want well, not we, but the city wants the revenue. But let's, if I can, just a little bit cut to the chase, right? The other issue where we've had, where people come in to pay the taxes, because also understand the tenant is crippled, right? Done major improvements, done various things to open a business. And they basically can't operate their business as a result of the failure of the landlord to pay the taxes. And I think this is the situation. I mean, if we cut to the chase, I think that's where we are. And so I agree with Collector Lonergan and Signator that, in fact, the city doesn't want to get in the middle of disputes, right? And I think that what has happened, especially in this case, is that there's been an ongoing dispute, and from what I understand, it has been going on for years, that has not been resolved. But the city doesn't want to get in the middle of that, right? What we have are statutes and laws put into place that says that anyone can come in and pay the taxes, which has happened not just with Dewey's, but many other establishments. And the trigger for that, what I've seen over the last 17 years, has really been, I'm gonna be crippled if my property taxes aren't paid, so I can't operate my business, which, just to your earlier point, also affects business in Springfield, right? Because
I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry.
that's okay, so that's, really my 2 cents in terms of how this particular situation has kind of played out, but we've seen it over the years. People come in and pay other people's taxes, but there is a vested interest, right? They want to continue to operate their businesses, and without payment of the taxes, they can no longer operate their businesses, which I would suggest is something that the city doesn't want as well.
Understood. Obviously, we want the taxes. There's no question about that. But not particular to this case, that the dispute on Worthington Street, but just in general. All right, so we have 50 bar rooms or restaurants across the city, thereabouts, right? Just around there. Is that 50? Would that be right? The liquor licenses and
No, there's over 100.
over 100. Okay, so even over 100. And if you have a landlord that's not paying taxes, I'm assuming that landlord's not upkeeping the building. So I'm making an assumption, but just a hypothetical. Would it make more sense, do other towns do this, like, rather than the restaurant bar owner coming in and paying, we'll say hypothetically, $25,000 a year for taxes, that it doesn't go to taxes, that the city holds it in escrow, and let's say after 2 years, they are holding $50,000 in escrow, a tax title auction goes in, and then the bar owner, restaurant owner could have a lien against at the auction, bid to 50, or get the proceeds, because that would accomplish one thing. At least it would get the building out of an unresponsive landlord doesn't appear to want to pay the taxes, or possibly hypothetically upkeep the building. Or does that make no sense whatsoever?
Truthfully, and
Yeah.
all due respect, it doesn't make sense to me because as far as putting an escrow and all that stuff, we can place a lien on the building. So through tax title, if we have to. But
the business owner though.
right, but my thing would be, and what.
Wait, what?
So if a business owner will say, if I'm trying to I have a restaurant, I'm trying to keep my business afloat, I have the privilege of getting a license, and my landlord is not paying his taxes. So I go in and I pay $25,000 to keep my business afloat. And I know the building's falling apart because the landlord's not only not paying taxes, hypothetically, we're talking hypotheticals. He's not doing anything with sprinklers, he's not doing anything with electric. What's the interest in the city of keeping this business off the tax title foreclosure? Let it get foreclosed, but let the business owner have a lien. Don't take the taxes as going as taxes. Hold it in escrow for 2 years. You got 50 grand. When the tax title auction happens, the business owner, the restaurant owner, bar owner can say, all right, I bid $50,000. They get their money back. They didn't lose any day of business. But at that point, if the landlord doesn't want to keep his building, it's gone. Because under this current system, and I know it's unique, you don't have a lot of landlords that don't say, I'm not gonna pay the tax.
here's the thing, I don't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt you, with the new tax foreclosure laws that are still in the process of being settled,
Mhm.
that you're potentially giving the landlord who didn't upkeep his building, didn't pay his taxes, a windfall, because and you have to hold it for a year.
Yeah,
You have to have a realtor list it,
yeah,
and then only after a year of it being listed, then you get to put it into, and this is what they have so far. You can put it out at auction, which has to be 2/3 of the assessed value. And so for 2, 3, multiple years of not paying their taxes, they potentially could not only get all that money, but it did a lot more additional money.
no, but the restaurant bar owner would have a lien of, let's say.
What I was saying
Of
earlier,
$50,000.
if they, and again, trying to get the city out of settling
Yeah.
dispute,
Mhm.
any dispute. If the tenant is paying, in essence, the taxes,
Yeah,
they can sue the landlord in court and lien. And I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, so Ken help me out if that's wrong, but you could sue and put a lien on for the judgment until it's either eaten up by rent,
Right.
taxes, et cetera,
I'm,
or the excess money over the rent.
but I was looking at it more, I mean, we had the receivership program here in Springfield, we took what, 500 houses? And essentially, that's what we did, we had contractors come in and say, all right, we're gonna, whatever the cost of the
That
porch
was
is,
different though, too.
but they had liens. And so what I was saying, give the business owner the opportunity to have a lien on a landlord. Because number one, if the city's not out the taxes, they got the 50 grand, right?
And I'm sorry, just to follow, so I can follow, the tenant would come and pay the taxes in full,
The tenant would pay the 50,000,
which is, what does that represent?
the
The
taxes.
tax, so they pay the taxes in full, for the 2 years of taxes, right?
Yeah, but you hold it in escrow.
We hold it in escrow, so the city doesn't have use of that money,
City doesn't have use of that money.
so we're still out to the 50 grand.
You are. And then then you do a foreclosure,
But if he
but then the tenant could use that money. You know.
That doesn't, I don't see where that helps the city.
No. Okay, it was just an idea.
I'm
trying
just,
to-
I'm
yeah.
trying to understand what you're
Alright.
asking, that's all.
And just a point of clarification, and I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Along with someone who renews their liquor license, there also has to be an inspection certificate. So every year through building as well as fire. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. So the building is not in disarray to the point of where it's uninhabitable, or the city has concerns about the structure itself. Because required along with the liquor license is that certificate of inspection from fire as well as building every year. So that's just as a point of clarification, so.
no, that's a great point, Attorney Days, because I was, I'm just making an assumption. If you're not paying your property taxes, you're probably not upkeeping your building.
So could I say
Yeah, oh,
something?
yeah, Maria.
So not to go around, my major concern is, and I got the biggest business district in my ward is, to run around the responsibility of the tenants, they are sequestered if the landlord doesn't pay. How do we work to alleviate? Do we do any type of waiver, partially payment? How do you work around? So let's say the landlord owes $100,000 and here's a business that's struggling to be open. And this is from advocating from the business perspective. How do we work with that business so it doesn't get to the extent that has to close because the taxes are being owed? And I'm not referring to this case because this is a unique case right now. But I'm advocating for all other business. So if I'm not making $100,000 a year, but the tax is owned by the landlord, which I don't have control because it's his property, now I have to put that amount of money towards paying while I'm paying rent. So how do we work with the businesses? And that's why I'm here asking.
Most of the
on
time,
behalf
when
of
they
the
enter this
business.
tax period, correct me wrong, what they pay in taxes, they reduce from their rent.
So may I say something?
That is the case. They will pay the rent, pay the taxes and deduct it from their rent, send their
So if
landlord the
taxes
receipt.
are 1,000 and they pay $2,000 a month in rent, they would pay the 1,000 and put 1,000 to the landlord for the balance of the rent. So they're not out any more than what if they're paying monthly rent.
Okay. So.
And that's on overall, like I said, not this case overall.
We have Alfredo. Yeah, pronounce your last
Or
name.
Wayland.
Here with us, and Alfredo, you wanted to add to the committee testimony?
Yes, so a very common lease type in commercial leasing is known as a triple net lease, where a tenant, a commercial tenant, pays a base rent based off of their occupancy. So if they occupy 2,000 square feet, there's a number attached to that. Then they typically pay a portion of the property taxes or bid fees or whatever it is required to get their licenses, usually tied to the percentage of their occupancy. And then the third portion of that triple net lease is whatever premium is added to the insurance policy for their type of business. So I would say most of the restaurants and bars in the city operate on either a triple net or a double net lease. In our instance, the tenant is responsible for any fees, any costs associated with the obtaining of their liquor license or any licenses necessary for their operation. We've never had a problem with them paying their property tax or paying the property taxes. In a lot of cases, the issue is the tenant will pay the landlord, so the landlord can then pay it online or through check or whatever, so that they can get the tax credit for that in the future. One kind of unique issue in this is that there was a property tax payment plan made, which is something that.
This is entering into the legal case, but just so we're clear, you used to at my office telling me that you were going to have me investigated because, quote, you're illegally accepting payments for taxes. So you not having a problem with them paying taxes is not really true.
So
Well, let's not get into,
Right.
So let-
in general.
Right,
so
yeah,
we're gonna-
general.
Well, he's bringing up payments.
So what I'm bringing up, no, I'm not bringing up anything that's relevant to the case. I'm bringing up the City of Springfield's repayment plan policies, which Mr. Lonergan's name is on it. And it states who is actually authorized to make a payment plan with any municipality based on the Mass General Laws and the Springfield City Ordinance, Chapter 4.36. The only person that's allowed to negotiate these tax payment plans is the owner of record. It's the person that's allowed to redeem tax title. Mr. Lumpkin went ahead and made a payment plan without my knowledge, without my permission. And that is the problem that we have.
So,
Well,
He could have paid it in full. I have no problem with
I
that.
think we-
so I think,
And he did, okay, let's not get into the.
exactly, that's what I was saying. Oh, let's talk
We're having
about-
a conversation in general, but the individual facts. But as, did you have something to offer there, Ken? Besides,
I have my hand up. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, so please hold on, Ken Shay is saying
I
something.
don't wanna step on Attorney Shay's feet because I see him in the room. But what we're not going to do today is, my suggestion anyway, is that what we are not to do is to discuss specifics of a pending matter, right?
Right.
we're in
Yeah,
agreement there.
In agreement.
we've
Now,
asked that to
you
stop.
guys can hear me. I think if someone else speaks, I get blocked out, but I would suggest that we should stay away from kind of chiseling down to the specifics of a specific case and to keep it more broad. I earlier only mentioned that case to bring some comparison to what city policies are versus kind of what happened in this case. But I think we're treading on dangerous ground. If there's pending matters that are before a court, then this is not the venue in which to litigate.
Right.
Yeah, we are
Yeah,
in agreement.
we all agree with that. Thank you for that.
Excuse me, can I chime in for a moment? This is Kenny.
Oh, okay, Mr. Lumpkin on.
Hey.
Yes,
Hey, yeah, I just want to say hi first, but I also want to add to Alfredo's point. I think he made a great point. Is exactly that a triple net lease for a tenant is typically relative to the space in which they rent, right? Alfredo, you would agree there?
Yes.
Okay. So the ordinance in the city is that all taxes associated with that LLC are paid. It's not just in relation to the space. So let's say, you know, you guys all know I own All American, right? So say, and I believe my taxes are paid on that building, correct? According to my tax certification. All right, cool, yeah. No, I just want, so say I bought 3 buildings, right? And I own and operate the location at 459 Dwight, but let's say I bought another building up on State Street. If those taxes aren't paid on State Street, although I occupied Dwight Street, you also don't get a tax certification. So I think that is kind of the bigger issue. And I I don't want to talk specifics because like we just agreed, this is an ongoing legal matter. But I think that is kind of the most scary part of this ordinance is that a landlord can go and buy 5 buildings. And like Councilor Perez said, if your business is only grossing, say it's, you know, a cookie shop, right? And you're only grossing 100 grand a year, and this landlord owes $250,000 a year, you're out of business. And it's not, you know, I think Alfredo made a point where he said, no, it wasn't Alfredo. I forget who made the point. I think it might have been Peter Signator. He made a point that said you would deduct the payment of taxes from rent. So that way, so say you're paying $2,000 in rent and you pay $1,000 in property taxes, that $1,000 difference is what you would just take out of rent. However, what about a situation where the property taxes exceed your rent? So I think to getting back to my initial point is correct. Triple net leases is a common type of lease. However, according to this city ordinance, you're paying property taxes. If a tenant has to pay property taxes, they're paying for more than just their lease space.
Thank you, Mr. Lumpkin, for that insight. As to Springfield, here's a question that I would have to, in downtown, we have the business improvement fees. How does that factor into bar owner, restaurant? Are they responsible for those as well? Is that
No longer.
no longer?
We have a legal opinion that we cannot hold up a liquor license, any license or permit for unpaid business improvement district fees.
And when did that change?
Last year.
Last year,
Last year. Okay.
that's about a year ago.
Okay.
So, let's say something.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think we have a conclusion not to get in the litigation of the matter because it's in court and I don't want to cross that. That's why I'm concerned crossing that legal aspect of jurisdiction. But in all honesty, overall, I think that we should look at another time in frame, look at the ordinance because I'm advocating for the businesses overall. As a businesswoman that I was, how do we work around people they are paying, but they getting behind and not let them be behind so much? Then it turn out to be a turmoil because they have to close the business. I think that's what we should be looking at our roles as city council.
Yeah.
On an overall of the advocating for the business in the district. I don't have the city ordinance in front of me,
Right.
and I wish someone could email me the city ordinance, please.
Yeah,
And
I'll give
then
you a
look-
copy of it.
Okay, so we could look at that and then further have another type of discussion from that perspective. So we don't get in this thread because I see businesses closing day by day. I just want to do prevention and look at the city ordinance. I think that's the role that we're playing here today. And you could clarify if I'm
To
wrong.
that point.
Yeah.
So before you go down that road, I just want to make it clear from a legal point that the committee understands its limitations. This was a statute that the city adopted. The state gave the city the
Yep.
option to adopt that statute. And the case law on that says that, in fact, I've got a case of the Adams versus City of Boston, a Supreme Court case, and it states, our case is interpreting local option statutes. have made it clear that although such a statute is accepted voluntarily, like this statute, okay? Once accepted, the municipality must comply with the statute's unambiguous mandates. So the city is not allowed to change or modify the statute to accommodate. And the other thing that we can't do is we can't repeal that statute.
Yeah.
So that statute is on the books and we can't change any language in that statute.
But
Okay,
we can't have policies that, how we implement it, right? Just our own.
we would have to have a policy that was outside the statute
Yeah,
that didn't conflict with the statute.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, just off of this hearing alone, and this is why we have these hearings and why we try to make constructive use of these hearings. One issue I'd like to explore is when a business owner or a bar owner, a restaurant owner comes into the tax collection office, I think there should be some kind of a notification to the city that, yes, I'm paying the property taxes because I want to keep my restaurant going, but it's with prejudice or without prejudice, meaning, you know, I'm paying the property taxes because I want to keep my liquor license. And then just allowed to notify the city, that's with prejudice. You know, or you sign a form, I'm paying somebody else's property taxes because I want to keep my liquor license. That's without prejudice. This is within our understanding as business owners. I do think that might be of some assistance. This is my 10 cents, and maybe it's good policy, maybe it's bad, but it's just unique to me that people can walk in and off the street, pay other people's property taxes. If you're a restaurant owner, or a bar owner, you do kind of have, you know, you have an interest in keeping your livelihood going. So I do think there should be some kind of form of it, so the city knows, or any other authorities might know that this was with prejudice or without prejudice. The state statute may not speak to that, but for good public policy here in the city of Springfield, that if people want to start a business here in the city of Springfield, at least they know they can do that. Number two, maybe, and maybe we can flesh it out a little further. The idea of, if you have a landlord with 10 or 15 or 20 buildings, and we've had that here in the city of Springfield, and the landlord can't keep up with tax payments, that kind of based on our receivership program, that bar owner, restaurant owner could pay the taxes to keep his business going. But when that building goes into tax title, that he has a lien on that building, so that he can go into the tax title auction and make a bid with that lien. Much like how we had in receivership, we had contractors who put in $50,000 for porch repairs, and we allowed that contractor to start at the auction in front of 20 other people. First bid, $50,000, and they were ahead of the game. That way, that business owner, bar owner would have an ability, if he got into a situation where a landlord was not paying his property taxes, at least to maintain his livelihood. I'd like to explore it. I don't know if it's right, wrong, different,
But just again, with the new tax equity laws.
I get you. We have to work it out.
I'm saying the first year would be, a realtor would be marketed on the open market.
Sure.
It could be a lien that would have to get paid off by that maybe, but they wouldn't have the first bid.
I catch that, but at least the bar owner, restaurant owner would have something in his quiver to keep his livelihood going, because if the building is sold to a third party, then he can be evicted, or he or she can be evicted immediately. So that, I think, would be an improvement on this law. So there's two improvements, I think, something productive, that there should be a form, prejudice, with prejudice, without prejudice. Number two, the restaurant bar owner should at least have a lien on the amount of property taxes that paid. And then third, it was answered, how do the bid fees pay into this? And you're telling, and I was informed, and I did not know this, that the bid fees, this was a reform last year. That is no longer a case, because I thought that was somewhat, even going further to business owners, asking maybe a bridge too far. Lastly, we have other committee member here, Jose Delgado. I see him on Zoom. How are you? It's Friday.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Chair? Thank you. No, I appreciate you you acknowledging me here. I've been just kind of listening to the conversation at hand, and I have to tend to agree with my colleague, Councilor Perez. you know, what I'm hearing is we're discussing who pays taxes, who doesn't pay taxes, and I tend to agree with Mr. Lonergan and Mr. Signator. You know, we're in the business of getting them paid. On one end, if you are owner and you don't pay property taxes over time, you can get put into, what is it, tax title, lien, whatever. The other hand, business owners, they also pay taxes separate, right? They have their business taxes that they pay to the city separately, right? So I'm of the thought process is that we want to encourage, obviously, our landowners or property owners to pay their stuff, right? We don't want to get into a thing that we're just not going to let that happen. But two, how do we protect our businesses, right? Because these business owners, they're coming to the city. We want them to open up their businesses, and they're making a significant investment, right? And so I'm assuming when a restaurant or a bar goes in, they have whatever deal they have with their landowner, but then to get their liquor license, everything has to be paid up. So I'm just kind of confused. How do we get to a point where you have business owners paying property taxes like that to me, and then they're at the whim of the landlord, whomever, whatever might be happening at that end. So I really want to explore how do we protect business owners in particular, so that they don't get into this mess in the first place, right? And so it probably even starts even way before they even get their liquor license. How do we protect so we don't get to these type of situations? So I agree with you, Councilor Perez, in terms of that piece, and we really need to be looking at, I don't know what it is, but looking at ways that we can be more supportive there, and obviously also supportive to property owners if they are struggling, right? Because we see it on the residential side. We have residents who are struggling and get behind. How do we support? You know, we support the residents. I don't know what we do on the commercial side of stuff, so I have to get educated there. And I'm trying not to touch whatever this situation that seems to be going on here. But at the end of the day, we've got to find a way, because you mentioned it earlier. This is a conversation that you and I have had, Mr. Chair. We've had a number of businesses closing, and particularly in downtown, right? You had the Artist Cafe, you had Jackalope, you had Grange Bacon Table. Like, I don't want to see any more businesses closing in downtown Springfield. In fact, I want to find how we can stop that, you know, and I actually think that we should have a separate meeting just off of that topic alone of businesses closing, Mr. Chair, if we can in the near future.
Yeah, no, we absolutely could have a separate meeting on the climate of business downtown. There's a lot of brick and mortar businesses closing down, and that it needs to be discussed. So thanks for that insight,
Yeah.
Councilor Delgado. We also have on the line, and I don't know if she would like to participate or add her 2 cents, Ms. Erica Swallow. We are not getting into individual lease issues or court cases, but we're just talking about liquor license policy in general. And we learned a couple things here this morning, and maybe we've come out possibly with some couple improvements, possibly. Ms. Swallow?
Yes, thank you so much for recognizing me. I wanted to listen in because I heard about this issue, and I echo Delgado and Perez in saying that there needs to be a solution here on the general idea of supporting tenants in this scenario, and on the business side, I would just obviously there are options for property owners who are having issues paying their taxes, payment plans, and such. But on this issue on businesses and tenants being affected by non-payment of taxes, I certainly would like to see support of those businesses, and don't feel it should be an obligation of tenants to pay property owner taxes in order to get their liquor license, unless there's, obviously we have to protect the if there's some sort of relationship between the business, the actual holders of the business. So if the tenant is indeed related to the property, then that should not be given a hardship scenario, or should be looked at in a different way than two businesses completely unrelated in their ownership. So very excited to see this come to your subcommittee to discuss, and I also want to make sure that our downtown is healthy and thriving, and have been also saddened by the number of businesses closing for various reasons, but this shouldn't be one of those reasons that we let another business close.
Thank you, everyone. Mr. Lumpkin, do you have anything further to add to this morning's conversation?
Yeah, so I actually have a question. I'm not sure. Does anyone have the ordinance in front of them? It's chapter 229. I know we were quoting the law, so I figured we would have this prepared as well.
I have it.
Yeah, Attorney Ken Shea does have that ordinance.
Do you mind? I don't know how long is the ordinance? A couple paragraphs. As long as that chapter.
Several pages.
The whole page?
Yeah, I don't think we have time to read.
I got
entire
you.
ordinance.
Well, the
I'm not
part
gonna do that.
the part pertains to what we're discussing. It does. There is some. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but there is some verbiage regarding the city council and their right to. It discusses something about the city council's right to waive. Is that? Do you have that in front of you?
No,
That's specific to
no, I have the city, I have the ordinance right here.
It's not-
No, this is similar to this case.
This part to this case.
Right.
So with that,
So
I gotta bring up one thing.
Can you guys hear me?
Attorney-
Can you hear
I'm
me?
sorry, Mr.
There is language out there. Well, I don't know if you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
It seems like I'm floating in and out, but it's my understanding there is language out there that speaks to the city council in terms of their discretion.
Okay.
I don't have it before me, but
yeah, so if we could at some point follow up to review that, that would be.
Yeah,
that'd be-
I will get that language and I will review it and I'll see what role the city council has within that parameters. So, thank you, everyone, this morning. We have one further.
He's been
Keep on
trying.
asking
Sorry.
questions.
Yeah, go right ahead.
All I wanted to do in this one is I wanted to ask the treasurer, with this ordinance, how much money does this bring in that we wouldn't have in the treasury each year if we did not have this ordinance?
Actually, it's in the budget, but over the past 5-10 years, it's been well over $1 million.
How much?
Well over $1 million in past taxes that have been collected as a result of various permits, licenses, et cetera, being held until the taxes are
So
paid.
in the average year. Per
Well,
calendar,
I'm not sure on that, but I can get. that for
And
you.
how many businesses have been put out of business? But by any of this?
None.
You know, it's one or the other.
We've never lost.
I don't think how much taxes we're collecting is the issue. It's the issue is, you know, is this a law that's going to promote business as well as promote the necessity of the city of collecting taxes, but how do we improve it? One improvement I already heard was the bid fees are cut off. Now, that just happened last year. This has been going on for 20, so that's an improvement. So there is room for improvement, and I think, again, there's further discussion. I actually want to see when taxes are paid, that the city's notified it's with prejudice or without prejudice, meaning the landlord doesn't want them paid or the landlord is in agreement with that. And number two, I want to explore the possibility of providing a lien to the restaurant business owner for paying these taxes. So if they want to continue their business at that property, they may have an opportunity in the future, not necessarily guarantee an opportunity to purchase that property. But beyond that, again, this is a case
Mr. Chair.
in litigation, and I think we got a pretty good breadth of the views and the ordinances and.
Mr. Chair, if I can jump in that.
Delgado?
If I could just ask a question, so you're saying, I think I'm hearing you saying, you know, looking into some type of, is it an opt out or opt in, or you said a
No,
notice?
not opt out, opt in. We were told earlier, Councilor Delgado, that the policy here in the city is if you own a building and I own the restaurant, I can go in and pay your property taxes. And if you don't want me to pay your property taxes, they still take them. So what I want is, when I go in to pay those property taxes, is you as a landlord should have
notified.
a form that says property taxes are paid, yes, but with prejudice. There should be some record for the landlord to say that they were paid that they didn't want an individual paying the property taxes. I think there needs to be some explanation there. 'Cause otherwise, we're going
That
back
makes
20
sense.
years. We're
That
going back
makes
20
sense.
years. We don't know why these property taxes were paid or weren't paid, you know? It could be paid because somebody had a literally, not figuratively speaking, but literally.
And we wouldn't know why a property owner wouldn't want their property taxes paid.
And also.
That's not up to us, right?
And also for the
To flag it
restaurant
down.
owner and the bar owner to say, I'm paying these taxes with prejudice. Yes, I own a restaurant. I'm gonna pay my landlord's property taxes with prejudice. I don't wanna pay these property taxes. So the city should have a record of that. I do think that matters.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And it does protect us because in any particular case, that document tells us that there's some dispute somewhere that we don't wanna enter from the legal jurisdiction aspect of it, automatically tells us. I think it protects the
Yeah.
city as well. See, and that's why we wanna have another meeting, look at that and have a document like that. Because then it gives us leverage to understand that there's an issue going on.
And if I could, you know, a lot of this reforms came from the control board. Peter Signator was there during those years. The city had $40 million of debt. I remember one particular bar restaurant owner who paid up $1 million cash in like 2 days. So the city has an interest in collecting property tax, but the city isn't just a bill collection agency. It's also a municipality that has an interest in promoting business and welcoming business, and also providing the community points of interest in restaurants and bar owners. So it isn't simply our only interest is in property tax collection. But I do think a restaurant owner and a bar owner, when they pay the taxes, it should be on record. I'm paying these taxes because I have to keep my liquor license going, but I'm paying them with prejudice. I just think that should be, you know, just this the fact that we're just getting taxes shouldn't be the end all be all. There should be some reason behind it, just in general. But other than that, I think this is an issue that I'm glad we had the hearing because it's an interesting hearing, number one. Number two, it's gonna be a productive hearing for local businesses. Number three, it needs to be discussed. And number four, obviously, I know there's a dispute and I can just simply say in general as a city councilor, I hope the dispute is settled amicably by both parties because Worthington Street needs a vibrant business district. And I hope that is settled, figured out amicably. So with that, I am going to conclude the morning's hearing.
Can I just say one last thing?
Not legal.
Not legal.
Yeah.
So I have some property down in New Jersey and they have similar statutes where property taxes need to be paid. The municipality actually requires us to register the lease with the municipality and an agreement between the tenant and the landlord if there are any taxes due by the tenant, kind of outlining what percentages are due. Maybe that could be something that could be instituted here.
Yeah.
So that the city can be aware of what taxes are owed under the agreement and they can actually see what.
Thank you for that insight. That's a thought, maybe a constructive one. So we'll go forward. We'll take into consideration. But beyond that, I just want to say thanks to all parties. Thanks for everyone.
Sean, I found before we end, I think I have 2 points. So in chapter 229, section 6, titled City Council Waivers, the City Council may waive such denial, suspension, or if it finds there is no direct or indirect business interest by the property owner, its officers or stockholders, if any, or members of its immediate family as defined in quoted section. So the city council does have the opportunity to waive such ordinance. And I would ask that, you know, I understand this initial hearing was to be more so informative, but my second and last point is in my situation, not regarding the legal matter, right? So I'm not talking retroactive. I'm talking to date. There are $17,000 owed in property taxes on the current property, and if those taxes aren't paid, you guys will have another business downtown closing.
Thank you, Kenny. We appreciate the insight and the information. We're going to continue this conversation because again, we do need to make sure that the city ordinances do not have a chilling effect on business here in the city of Springfield.
Sean,
So
I
with-
would just
with that-
make the point that in
Okay.
21 years,
Yeah.
I do not recall one business not being able to renew their liquor license because of this ordinance. And when it comes right down to the end, they have worked out something with them. Either they pay or their landlord pays. We've never had a business say, I can't renew my liquor license because of the taxes and I'm just closing.
With that, we are going to conclude this morning's hearing, and we can always have room for another one. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone taking time out of their schedule for the county.